Welcome to the District 106 Club Coach Training. Tonight, we are going to cover some things about club coaching and some recommendations that we have for approaching it, especially that first couple meetings to get rolling with club coaching. So to start out, I know we've all kind of been introduced to each other already, but I'd like to start with some introductions and really what club you belong to and why you are here tonight, what you're looking to get out of the training. So I guess I'll start. Adriana Michaels, I'm a member of Christopher Toastmasters Club 958 in District 106. We meet Monday nights via Zoom. No in-person component yet, although we are working on a plan for that. Turns out good internet is hard to find in public meeting spaces. So I'm here tonight to keep honing my presentation skills and the information that we're sharing about club coaching. And really, I'm here to help you guys feel like you have what you need to get your club coaching experience started on the right foot and making sure you know what support there is for you as you complete your journey as club coach. So Nicole, why don't you go next?
Thank you very much. Yes, I'm Nicole Converse. I'm with the Paul Bunyan Toastmasters. And the one thing I am looking forward to getting out of this training is exactly what it is that, well, first off, how do we find the clubs that we're coaching? I know someone had mentioned they asked to be a coach. And then at yesterday's meeting, I believe Adriana had mentioned there are clubs that are between, I think it was like 3 and 8 or something like that, that they do need that little bit of help. So I think that is the one thing I want to get out of this meeting is understanding how we choose what clubs need the coaching or mentoring, and then going over just the basics of best practices. So yes, thank you very much.
All right, just taking notes. Go ahead, Denise.
Denise Sundquist. I am part of Paul Bunyan Toastmasters. I was interested in club coaching when Nicole challenged me to do it. I cannot let Nicole get ahead of me, all right? And so I'm really interested. Last night was maybe more of an aha moment thinking about club coaching for other clubs. But really, I started thinking a lot more deeply about our own club and the success and how I can make a change in our own club. And it may be, I thought more about how to try some tricks and tips at our own club and then maybe have success and feel like I could be a stronger leader once I have success in our own club.
Absolutely. Thank you, Denise. Catherine, did you have anything you wanted to share?
Oh, just so glad to see everyone here. Catherine Zakuniak, Region 4 Advisor. I belong to 2 clubs in Regina, Saskatchewan, Wild Oats and BLT Advanced Club. And I'm excited to hear from or learn from all of you and learn from Adriana and maybe take some good tips of how to set up club coaches for success and help other districts apply that in their districts too. So thanks for having me here.
Great. Thank you so much. Ed, did you have anything you wanted to add before we get started?
I am a member of Northside Toastmasters, my home club here in Mounds View, Minnesota. I also belong to Contest Mastery Toastmasters, which meets in St. Paul, and Saturday Morning Live, which meets in St. Paul. All of those clubs are still virtual at this time. I am the District 106 Club Growth Director. Club coaching falls into my area of concern. I'm delighted to have Adriana serving as a club coach committee chair. We worked together a couple of years ago to create a club coaching manual for the district. We conducted some club coach training sessions together back when they were allowed to be live. And Adriana has had a remarkable record of success as a club coach. I have served as a club coach. I won't say I was remarkable, but I did finally get a club to distinguished status. Persistence plays a role. With that, back to you, Adriana.
Thank you, Ed, and thank you, everybody. we're going to get started with PowerPoint. Yay, PowerPoint. But that's where we'll start. There's more to go over. So don't judge this entirely based on PowerPoint. There we go. I have too many windows open. Can everybody see my screen here? Good. All right. I already talked about me, but I put my face and my contact information in the slideshow so that everybody has it. So just in case you forgot, this is me. All right. Our agenda for today, we're going to talk a little bit about what a club coach is. What are the benefits to you, the interested club coach? Some of the strategies that we've identified of how to be successful in being a club coach. We're going to talk a little bit about the manual that we have used in the past to introduce the ideas and concepts and strategies. And of course, we'll have a nice big Q&A at the end. So save your questions. If you have anything while we're talking, raise your hand and I will call on you. Okay, so the outcomes of the training. We already talked about this quite a bit. So really it's, you have decided that you want to be a club coach. So what is the role? What's the approach? The different tools that Toastmasters has to offer and some of those strategies. So as a club coach, you probably know what coaching is. We have a whole pathway dedicated to coaching in Toastmasters. A coach, especially a club coach, is there to build rapport with club members. You're there really as an outside person. You're there to observe and analyze. You're there to help the club learn about best practices. You're there to encourage and empower them to hold good meetings and to come up with things that they might not see as someone in a club on a day-to-day basis. Also, a big part of why clubs sometimes have struggles, they don't have goals that they're actively working towards. So helping those clubs identify what their goals could be, what the plans of actions are to get there, and just empowering them to work those plans. A coach is also an important piece of the puzzle for a club feeling like they're making progress. That enthusiasm that you bring, making sure that everyone feels responsible for the success of the club is very important as well. So you kind of know what a club coach is. I just quickly ran through some of these things. What do you guys think the benefit is to you participating as a club coach? What are you looking to get out of it?
Experience.
Experience?
Yes. Well, so experience in the coaching and mentoring side of things, but then also more experience in the way clubs do things.
Okay.
Learning how the different roles that they use, how they do their roles, how different each meeting can be. That's something that I'm interested in getting out of it, just because, say for instance, I did give a speech at a different club on a topic that I wasn't interested in originally, but it was part of my path, and I actually just wrote a paper on it. But the feedback that I got was better than I was expecting, primarily on the topic. And I liked the way everybody had the opportunity to evaluate. I liked the way that they gave the feedback. And it was sort of I was able to take away something a little different than my club could have given me, it kind of felt like.
Okay.
So that's kind of what I'd like to get out of visiting with other clubs and getting to know them and seeing how they do things. And then also having the experience for myself as well.
Great. Thank you for sharing. There is that element of going out there, taking what you know from your home club, saying, these are what I think some best practices are, and learning, right? Taking those back or changing your approach entirely to maybe how a general evaluator, for instance, evaluates a meeting. There's lots to learn out there. There's no one correct way to do things. Denise, did you have something to add?
Always being, first of all, encouraging and supportive after someone gives a speech, to just make them want to do better and excited to do the next speech. So bringing that into a coaching position where you go in and, I don't know, Adriana, if I told you last night, I'm in OSHA EPA compliance. So you can imagine I'm kind of nuts and bolts, and to soften the edge and being able to deliver something in a kind way and a supportive way without being too rigid, which is typically where I think I feel most comfortable. Like, this is the way you should be doing it, and this is the way. And again, I think I'm kind, but I just think always the way that I present something in a really enthusiastic, encouraging way versus here's a better way.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing so much about the leadership experiences in Toastmasters. Like club coaching, you're taking the skills that you've learned in your club and you're applying them in a position where you are the leader, whether you like it or not, and learning how to approach especially strangers in a lot of cases, people that you haven't interacted with before, making sure that you are approaching people in the right way, that the way that you view yourself is how others view you. There is so much you can get out of being a club coach, and developing good feedback skills and personal leadership confidence is a big part of that. All right, we're going to move on here. So here's the summary from Toastmasters. Being a club coach is your opportunity to learn and develop those team building skills. So that's, how do you go from a guest in a club to their coach? How do you build the team in the club? How do you get them behind deciding that they're going to make this thing work? They are committed to the club and they're ready to work the plan. Taking that leadership experience that is so valuable as a part of Toastmasters, the things we get outside of giving speeches and especially outside the club. There's a lot of skills as a coach to be a facilitator. How do you facilitate discussions? And we'll talk about some of these discussions later. Being diplomatic. That is an interesting one. Some of these clubs that need coaches, they might have, I'll just say, that guy who's been there, that gal who's been there for 50 years, I have a guy in my club that's been there 50 years, and they know the way that it's going to be done. How do you win them over? How do you make sure that everybody's on the same page? And of course, you're taking those skills that you've developed in your time as a Toastmaster, and you're sharing what you've learned and building a better version of their club and a better version of your home club as well. Making sure that Toastmasters has a future, making sure these clubs have a future. There's a reason to keep the club alive. And of course, you probably want to be a distinguished Toastmaster. That's probably one of the other reasons that you're here tonight. It is part of the education program, and it is such a valuable part of that. All right, club coach qualifications. What do you need to be a club coach? Well, you need to have not been a member of the struggling club upon appointment. I believe I missed a bullet point here. There are some educational requirements. I believe it's completing up to level 2. And if you had been in the old program, it's the advanced communicator bronze, advanced leader bronze. Those still count for something. So some experience in Toastmasters. And I know that at least the new requirements starting next year, you need to have been a Toastmaster for at least a year. I don't think that's the case right now. Maybe Ed or Catherine can correct me, but you can't be a member of the club that you're going to coach. Now, you can still coach your own club, but not in an official capacity. And of course, the club requesting coaching, the requirements right now, they're a club with at least some members. Under 12 is generally that qualifier for when a club is eligible to have a coach. So we think of, what is that number that Toastmasters thinks of as a healthy club? 20. So if a club falls below 12, that is when they can officially request a coach. All right, you're here. You've already done some of these things. You've contacted mostly Ed, not me, right? You've said, hey, I want to be a coach. Then we help find a club that needs and wants a coach. I have a list that I'll pull up here from the district that is basically those clubs under 12. And the best first step is to just go to that club and visit as a guest. You don't even have to tell anyone that you're interested in being their coach. You don't have to. It's kind of a sneak thing. You go in and you are a guest and you're there for that guest experience. You want to see how the meeting runs, see just as a complete outside observer what the dynamics of the club are. You can get to know people on a different level just by visiting as a guest. And now, if you think it's a good fit, if you're resonating with the club and the members, then you want to meet with the club president and say, well, actually, I was here as a secret club shopper and I want to be your coach. And that is an important step. Even if the club has the 12 members, you want that buy-in from the president. And from going to that first meeting, you probably already have some easy ideas or some things that you can share right off the bat of, I love how your club does this, and I think that we could get stronger in these areas. And then, of course, there's a club coach appointment form that you fill out, and it's easy as that. You're a club coach. So there's a couple of things that are early assessments that we call them. So number one, you go as a guest. Do they have an agenda? Do they have an agenda that explains what's actually going to happen in the meeting? Do people know the roles of the club? Do they fulfill them properly? Are roles explained? All of those things, think of that general evaluator evaluation, right? What does that meeting actually look like? And you can get that feel just from going once as a guest. Now, quality meetings is another thing that's a little bit harder to ascertain, but does the meeting flow well? Again, does everybody know what the roles are? Are evaluations useful? Is table topics fun and entertaining as well as being challenging to people? And then, of course, membership, another one that you can see right from that first meeting. How many people are at that first meeting? Do they have all the roles filled? And if you're there as a guest, do you get a guest folder or a handout, information on how to join? Do you have any insight into how they would take you from a guest to a member and what is offered, as a new member? Now, this is kind of an open-ended question that Toastmasters asks us for this training. You've probably seen it. If you have ever been to a club outside your own, there are differences between clubs. And there's some clubs that just seem to have it. They are vigorous and productive. They're making progress towards the DCP goals. Members are giving speeches and earning level completion credits. And then there's others out there where maybe people show up, maybe it doesn't seem to be a priority. Any thoughts on why there are some clubs that just seem to have it and others just struggle?
One thing I don't quite understand is our Paul Bunyan Toastmasters, we have nobody online. They are all local people. But if I'm a part of, or I jump in on Meandering Mississippi's, they have people from all over the place or internet. And I'm like, wait a second, how do we get people, number one, that are already members of other clubs to grow our club so our numbers look better? Or how do people find our club? We've never tapped into how to because I was just peeking, and I'm cracking up, Nicole, because talk about a club with 1 to 12 members. Yeah, we're at 13. So we got to make sure we have
a possible 2 guests, possibly 3 guests for Friday, actually. And one of them is not from Minnesota.
There you go.
all right.
So possibly.
So those are good questions, right? How do people find the club? How do you attract people that aren't just in our, call it, traditional pre-pandemic world, walking by and see a sign or walking by and see the meeting? That PR is a big component, right? And
There's got to be something, because Meandering Mississippi's, Lily is in Colorado. They have another one that was in a speech contest. He's down in Rochester. And of course, Helen's in multiple. I think she is from Pequot, but it's just, I'm not saying it's so frustrating because I want them to succeed, but
right.
But you have to look at, first off, Rich is the one who started that. Rich has been in Toastmasters for a million years.
50 years.
Second, a lot of those people are people he's known for a long time as well, and they also belong to multiple other Toastmasters clubs. So really, it's not like he added anybody new to Toastmasters. He just pulled from other clubs, which is great because
It's great.
It's a different.
They know what they're doing already.
Yes.
But what's hard is we have always been a distinguished, or president's distinguished, select, whatever. It's always been. And last year, even though we had multiple members do so many levels and we did fantastic, we didn't get anything because we fell below
the member part of it.
20.
Right.
Yeah, we failed
That's
on
the hardest
membership
goal.
part.
Yep. So do you
Fairness
guys
to
have
Meandering
guests? Oh,
Mississippi
go ahead, Ed.
Meters. In fairness to Meandering Mississippi Meters, there are some people who joined just that club.
Yeah.
They have, I agree, and they have people that join that club. Tanya, for instance, is from Pequot. But many of their members are not local people. And that's all I'm saying. Number one, when you talk about, yeah, we are a productive club. We're a great club. We have a lot of, the number of goals that we hit every single year are around 10, which is at the top of District 106. But we're struggling with membership. And last night, actually, I don't want to overlap because last night's meeting was so productive. Thank you, Catherine, in just identifying the membership goal and how that also impacts District 106. I get that. So I had a lot of aha moments last night. Like, okay, I get it.
So for your clubs, if you have a guest that shows up, regardless of how they came through another Toastmaster by randomly finding you guys, do they tend to join? Do they come and they're not sure, or do they say, this is for me, I'm in?
I think if I'll jump in, and then Nicole is off mute as well. I believe that we have definitely had success people joining. When they find out the level of commitment or work, they sometimes don't re-up when it comes time to renew their membership in July. Or, okay, and I'll turn it over to Nicole for her opinion.
Thank you. So as far as guests, I think our biggest obstacle is definitely getting them to actually commit to coming to that first meeting, because I can tell people, I'll send them the agenda, I'll send them reminders, I'll send them everything that they need to see, and getting them to get to that first meeting is probably the most difficult, because I always hear, oh, I forgot, or oh, I'm really sorry, something came up, or oh, I had a meeting. And then I never hear from them again.
Okay.
If I can get them to show up, if we can get them to show up to that first meeting and then remind them regularly about the next meeting, or excuse me, get some conversation going, get some sort of back and forth going, then they'll typically come around. Otherwise, and then we will have some that they don't communicate in any way whatsoever, but they just keep showing up. So we've had a few members that do that as well, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But that's our biggest obstacle, is getting people to show up for that first meeting, because then they definitely see how it's 7 o'clock in the morning on a Friday. I mean, I get it. Nobody wants to do that. But as soon as they show up and they see the energy that we have, and to us, we've seen how higher energy can be, and we've seen how lower energy can be. And even at our lowest, our guests are still thinking this is still a high energy place. This is still something that, yeah, it's a lot of fun to start my day this early, or we don't meet at 7 o'clock. I'm there at 7. That's what it is. We meet at 7:30. But they see the excitement that we have for being there and how connected we all can be. And that's when I think a lot of them think like, yeah, I'd like to come back to this, because it's early, but it's starting the day off right. But like I said, that first meeting, like, just show up. Just gotta show up. That's all you gotta do.
Now here's a question that isn't on the screen right now. True or false? If you have a quality meeting, guests will join.
Oh. It really depends.
I said true.
Yeah.
Just for fun.
I'm sticking with false, just because a guest doesn't know what a quality meeting looks like. I know
But
they
people have probably
understand
been to meetings before, right? That
Yeah.
either through work or church or what have you, they probably can feel the difference between a poorly run meeting and a good meeting. You know, maybe not a quality between good, right? But if a guest comes to a quality meeting, shouldn't they join?
Can I jump in?
Absolutely.
I think, number one, hands down, we have quality meetings. They are really fun, they're engaging, and they are well run. That is not our issue. If you can believe it, I think our meetings can be a little bit, because these are my absolute favorite people in the world. I think when people come in and you've already got these people that we have a little bit of banter. We have some history where we have maybe nicknames. Steve Etch-a-Sketch. Just based off different speeches, and we always bring up when somebody gave a 26-minute speech, or
oh my god,
crowbars in word of the day. That's just his word. Like, I had a crowbar in. Okay, it's like walking into a setting that everyone is already really good friends, and they feel like an outsider. And I know it's horrible. It's a double-edged sword. To know that we all get along so well and we are so much fun, and there's such a level of either security or safety with each other and being able to be our true authentic selves. And then someone else comes in and they might feel not quite, it's not that they don't feel welcome, but it feels like we're this tight-knit family.
Like cliquey or something, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that guest experience, while it might be a well-run meeting, maybe the guest experience isn't good, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're not giving an opportunity to be introduced. Maybe roles aren't being explained. Maybe there's inside jokes that makes people feel like an outsider. Okay. All right. I'm going to move on, but keep these thoughts in mind. Okay. Some strategies as a club coach. We're already talking about these right now, right? What do you do? What areas do you poke on? So one of the biggest things for me when I was a club coach was that my experience was that the president loved the club, wanted a coach, and her problem was there were some members that just wanted to do things their way. Might not be the case in every club, but I had to work towards showing them that I was there to help, that I had experience, that I was willing to provide and feedback. And I was there not only to be the coach, but at the time, because they were struggling with members, I was there to fill any role they needed. And I was going to do that role to the best of my ability. So that's a big part of establishing that credibility, that trust and respect. Of course, though, you're not there to do the things. You're not there to tell them what to do. You are there to make them realize what they should do and help them with it. You're not there to institute the change. You're there to say, what do you think? Okay, how can I help? Right? So you have to make sure they are owning up to that challenge and they are ready to make that commitment. And through that, you're facilitating and guiding, you're pointing them to the available resources. Now, I'm sure that you've heard of some of these. Everybody's heard of Moments of Truth. You guys have run that before. How about the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats analysis? We'll talk about that a little bit more. That is a really great tool as a coach to help build a plan for the club. And then some of the other tools from Toastmasters. There's a club coach troubleshooting guide and a club quality checklist. And then some other tools from Toastmasters. There's a few different, these are all in the handbook that I'll send to you here. And these are trainings that you can run. Some of these are presentations that you can give at the club, especially if a club is struggling finding speakers. Volunteer, run one of these. If they are having difficulty with evaluations, for example, there's a speech for that. If they're having difficulty knowing what to do in each role, there's a speech for that. So there's a lot of things that you can do that it's just, yeah, I'll give a speech. I'd like to give you guys this speech from Toastmasters on how to do these things, and that can start getting the gears turning. And of course, you need their buy-in. They have to want you to give these trainings, but you need to make sure that you're really there to assist. You offer up, I'd be happy to give a speech. I'd like to give this speech. And if there's any specific training they want, either you can assist with that, or you can reach out to anyone at the district, and I'm sure they'd love to help. All right, so we already kind of talked about this. Number one, meeting number one. I like to call this meeting number 0, but I put a 1 here because not everybody starts counting at 0 like electrical engineers. Meeting number 1, attend as a guest. Go in there and observe. Write down everybody's names. Be present and just absorb. If you feel like it's a good fit, if you have some ideas, meet with the club president and talk to them about if they want to coach, if you can do that. You need their buy-in. Meeting number 2, once you've met with the president, show up again, and that's where you pull off the mask and you say, well, actually, I'm going to be your club coach. Get that opportunity to say, here's who I am. Here's my experience. Here's what I'm here to do. I want to help. Now, this doesn't have to be meeting number 3, but the next thing to do is most clubs who are struggling haven't actually thought about why. And Moments of Truth is a great way to frame that why. And it's an opportunity to get the club talking about what they see their problems are. Because they might see things completely differently than you. And if they can say, I know we have a problem with new membership orientation. So-and-so joined and they didn't get assigned a mentor and they left after 2 months, etc. Right? They can see these problems. We can also use these other guides as a quick way to do it. I'll bring those up later. And then another thing, if you're in that mood, or maybe if you didn't get quite enough from Moments of Truth can be kind of rough in my experience. You know, they say, well, you rank things from a 1 to a 5, and if things are less than 3, you should talk about them. It's possible if you have a club that has been running light, 5 members at meetings, they're going to be very pessimistic about the challenges that they're facing. So a strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats discussion, SWOT, will help them also focus on some of those positives. And when I did this with my club that I coached, this was actually over the course of 2 meetings. I did one that was just strengths and weaknesses. And we did one that was opportunities and threats. And then we circled the ones that we wanted to focus on. And I'll tell you, this won people over more than anything else I did. Now you've got them thinking, you've got those juices flowing. You've probably put them in the mindset of, this is what we do well. This is what we can improve. Here's the Toastmasters tried and true moments of truth, bulleted list of things to focus on. Then you create the club vision and the action plan, which could just be the club success plan. That's a way to frame this. Or it could be something completely different. And then, of course, after that, you sit back, you help them work that action plan. You're there for them. You're there at the meetings. You help them host an open house. You invite everybody you possibly know to that open house. I like to invite my husband to open houses. And I say, don't tell anybody who you are. Just tell me how it goes. Tell me what you think, right? It's kind of that meeting number one again. What is the guest open house experience? Right? That's going to be completely different than someone running it, or even someone who is familiar with what an open house normally runs as. So these are the steps, tried and true. Yeah, this is all in the guide. Okay. Now, I'm going to reiterate this really quick before we go through some of the things in the guide. The club has to want this. It has to be driven by the club. They have to know what they are working towards. You are not there to tell them what to do. You are there to coach them. The members have to be on board with the plan. They need to develop their vision, and they need to go back and read, as I have here, the club mission. And if they've lost sight of the club mission, one of your recommendations is that it gets read at the beginning of every meeting. Puts people in that mindset of, this is what we are here to do. Set specific goals, create an action plan. We talked last night about setting goals and how you work towards them. That is a huge leadership skill, huge personal skill too, of how to do that. Okay. I talked for a long time. Any questions before we look at some of these specific recommendations in the PDF? All right. So what I have here is I have a Google Drive link out. And what is in this link is basically this presentation that we just went through that is in, well, Google Doc format and a PDF. And then we also have the Club Coach manual in here. And I'm going to, well, I'll open up the doc. That'll be easier. So in this is adapted from one that is out there on the internet. And it has been modified a few times by members of District 106 over the course of the few years. I added some new stuff this year about specifically pathways and some of the new links to the new tools. So there's a lot of things in here, and I'll let you read through this, but we're going to focus a little bit on the tools because I think that those are useful to see. So let's look at SWOT, as you guys aren't too familiar with that one. If I can get my links to work, there we go. Can everybody see this okay? So there's a couple of different ways to run a SWOT exercise. And this is, like I said, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. When I did this with my club, I said, I need 20 minutes of a meeting and we're just going to brainstorm. I wrote up on the board and we wrote things down, and then we kind of voted on what the top ones were for both. It was as simple as that. Get people talking, practice your facilitation skills. And there's a lot of information in here about how that works. You're welcome to read through it. I'm always willing to come help run one of these, but it's really getting those juices flowing. So strengths and weaknesses are pretty simple. For my club, one of our biggest strengths is diversity. We have people who don't speak English as their first language. We have 80-year-old people who have been in Toastmasters for 50 years. We have people that were fresh in Toastmasters. We have members that live in other countries now that we're meeting online. So just having a diverse, especially in a community club, there's diverse viewpoints and everybody sees the world a little bit differently. One of our weaknesses was that we are a community club, and we just didn't really do a good job of ever promoting in the community. We were just completely focused on running our meetings. Kind of like what you guys said too, because there were people that had been in the club for such a long time, those guests weren't given the attention that they should have been. That's a big part of running those meetings so that people feel welcome. So opportunities and threats is different than strengths and weaknesses. Strengths and weaknesses are internal to the club. Opportunities and threats are external. So you might say an opportunity for a club is maybe one of your members is part of a local newspaper or something, and you might have an opportunity there to start promoting the club. A threat might be, for your guys' example, your club meets at 7:30 in the morning. That is difficult for a lot of people. How do you reconcile that? So this is really just getting those juices flowing, and again, focusing on positives and opportunities. Okay, now I'm going to, sorry, as I scroll through this has a lot of information. I want to pull up some of these other tools that Toastmasters has. The Club Coach Troubleshooting Guide, which I apparently don't have downloaded, is think of this as an abbreviated moments of truth. This is something that you can do in person, print off and give to people and say, hey, give it back to me anonymously. You could set up a Google form for this. And this is just another way for people to think about what the club problems are. And you might hear different things from different people. So there's a lot, I won't read through this, but this is another way of framing this moments of truth. Again, this is an easy way to get anonymous feedback from people. And you never know, people might not really have thought about these things in a while. If they've just been focused on keeping the meetings running, they won't have thought about this. Okay, let me, F11. Let's see, Control Shift H. Nope, not H. Okay. So that's one. The club quality checklist is another one from Toastmasters. And I hope it's a zip file. I don't think you guys can see this because I think I'm only sharing my Chrome window. But this is another one that's a similar quiz, but this one is yes and no, just yes and no. Moments of truth we're familiar with. And then this also has some links to some of those different, this training is very close to this first class club coach training. There's some other pointers here, rebuilding a Toastmasters club. And some brochures. I think there's, yep, here's also the presentations that we talked about, some of the trainings you can do, and some information about pathways if your club is struggling with pathways. Okay. So I will email everyone the link to this. Use it. Give me feedback if you think something does not make sense. Read through it. And I think that it really helps guide you in the right direction starting out. Now, the hard part, if you don't get buy-in from the club, if they're not willing to do these exercises, it's kind of tricky, right? And that's when you can call on me, you can call on Ed, maybe your area director, and say, hey, I need someone else to come and sit in one of these meetings and give me some pointers, or just be there as an enthusiastic guest. That is completely valid. Okay. Now it's time for question and answer. We've got plenty of time left. So based on our introductions, I took a couple of notes here. So we did cover we didn't cover the clubs that need coaching. Let's cover that right now before we start. So I use this fancy website this is the club coach report for District 106. I'm not sure if this information is 100% correct, and Ed and I will look at that. But these are the active coaches in the district, what clubs they are helping, and just their names. Here's the list of the clubs that need coaches. Clubs below 12 members, and you'll notice some of these are at 0, so they have probably closed as a club. And this list is pretty long. There are 87 clubs here. Of course, again, the ones that are 0s may have closed. So there are lots of clubs out there that need coaches. Need coaches and want coaches are two different things, but this is a list to work from. And especially if a club has reached out to myself or to Ed and say, I want a coach, those will be the ones that we say, you should go check them out first, especially if they're meeting online and you don't have to drive to Duluth or something. Makes it a lot easier. And then there's also a list here of clubs that are close to that 12 number, and maybe your club's on here.
Uh-oh. Yes, we are.
But those are the ones that, I mean, my club's on here. We're at 16 right now. So there are clubs that are right on that
list.
border. Right on the border. And they should start, if they haven't already, start thinking about, are we doing the right things to succeed? That's partially the president's role, right? But
golly.
I'm not trying to point fingers, but right. Have you set the
It's
goals
not
for
the
the
VP
year?
of membership? That's not on me.
Yeah, who's our VP of membership?
Yeah. Hey, I've got 3 possibilities. I'm doing my job. So at the very top of this, so I did reach out to, it was the Busters was the
Okay.
other one that Ed had asked me to reach out to. I did see them on here with a coach at the very top. Is Judy an active coach already?
I think Judy is not coaching. Arbusters reached out to me and asked for a coach.
Okay. I did reach out to them again today, and they did get back to me today. So I do plan on going to their meeting on Wednesday next week. I contacted them in the middle of their meetings. They meet from noon to 1, and I emailed them at like 12:21, and I'm like, oh, whoops. But yes, I plan on doing that.
Okay, so we didn't cover that. I think we've covered most of the things that you wanted to get out of this. Choosing a club, you need to go as a guest and find one that fits you. Some of these basic ideas of how to approach this. Now, lessons to bring back to your home club, you might learn that over the course of this. You could take these exercises and bring them to your home club if you want to. Work them as a coach is not an official coach. The other things about members from outside the community and finding guests, we can talk about that now if you would like to. So let's move on now to the Q&A.